Okay, so this video is going to just be about my testimony, and I'm going to be sharing my experiences with the traumatic events and the different situations that I had gone through in my life. I'm also going to talk about just like my journey with Christ and how far I've come, and I really want this video to help people. I want it to help people that were dealing or are dealing with the same things. I'm going to talk about witchcraft. I'm going to talk about just feeling temptations, feeling depressed. I'm going to talk about suicidal ideations. I'm going to talk about depression. I'm going to talk about mental illness, because those were all the things that I was dealing with. And I'm going to talk about just like feeling lonely in high school. I feel like for me, like, this video is kind of gonna be all over the place, but this is really just me like breaking through the different barriers that I had placed on myself. And I really want this video to help, and I want to share this to people, because I feel like there are so many young teenagers that are dealing with the same things that I went through, and even adults. And I feel like there's so much spiritual warfare going on in the society and the world that we live in today. And I really just hope that this video can bring awareness just about spirituality and witchcraft. And I hope that it can kind of encourage you to, walk through your life with Christ, because this video is really going to talk about how God and just my journey with Christ has like completely changed my life for the better. And so I'm just going to really get into like witchcraft and what really started, like my whole I guess story, because this is going to be my testimony into finding Christ. So this is a lot. I'm going to start with when I was 14, because when I was 14, this is when I started to feel pretty depressed. And I had grew up Catholic. I grew up not in the church, but I knew about God. I was baptized. My family, I went to different schools, not schools, but I went to different classes after school. Oh, there's a bee. After school, and basically I was educated and I was taught about the Bible and the scripture and everything like that. So God was in my life for sure, but I just feel like it wasn't with the family that I had, we weren't really practicing it with our actions, and we didn't go to church every Sunday. So yeah, for sure God was in my life. And then I feel like I never really, I always had faith in God, but I never really took the courage to read the Bible on my own when I was younger. So I kind of never really thought about it, but I knew he was there. And I really want to get, started with when I was 14, because this is when my life was really taking a toll on me, and things were starting to get, bad for me. So when I was 14, this was when COVID happened, and we were in the house, we couldn't really go outside. I feel like in that time, a lot of people, on TikTok and social media, a lot of people were really on spiritual journeys, and it was the whole wavelength of just woke and stuff like that. So I was definitely really interested and intrigued into those topics. I'd say I was always a very deep thinker. Going through school was also very difficult for me. I was always very quiet, and I was always very shy, and I think it was just because of the household that I had grown up in. I was in a very emotionally abusive household, and so I think for me, I was always alone, and so I was always in my thoughts. And I feel like that's why I had really I really was intrigued by the spirituality, the whole spirituality trend on social media. I was really intrigued with the woke stuff. I always was so eager to learn, and I think that was a blessing and a curse, because I think I was very naive and very gullible. But I do think that now, I'm so blessed that I do have that I did take the time to really educate myself on certain things. But I think that a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers are very intrigued by those things, and I don't think that they know the very serious effects that it really has on you, especially when you do really take those things seriously. So during this time in 2021, 2021, I was very intrigued with witchcraft. And at this time, I had seen it on TikTok, and I really wanted to start getting into it. They would talk about manifestations. They would talk about how they would do spells and how it really changed their lives for the better. And I was at this time, I was going through depression. I hated my life. I was failing my school. and I really needed like a way out. And so I felt like if this was something that I could find a way out of, if that makes sense. And I feel like it's just really sad that, you know, I was in that vulnerable position. I think a lot of these things on social media target vulnerable, you know, teenagers or vulnerable people in general. So I started to, you know, order different witchcraft books. I started to really educate myself firmly on the history of it, and I was really taking it seriously. And so at this time I was following a lot of content creators that, you know, talked about witchcraft, and I feel like I idolized them in a way because they seemed like their lives were great. And I do think that a lot of people that deal with, you know, that are very like spiritual, and I don't want to really put too much negativity on spirituality because I feel like there's so much truth in it, but I do think that if you don't know what you're doing, it can be very like scary in a way. So I think a lot of people that deal with like witchcraft, I think it's a cycle that a lot of those people deal with mental illnesses, and a lot of those people are struggling with depression. And so it's like, I think this just goes with not idolizing false gods, because you never really know what someone's going through behind closed doors. And so I remember like during this time of my life, I started to really like journal. I was very like just wanting to educate myself on spirituality. And so I started, you know, doing different spells. I started doing different manifestation spells. I did different protection spells. Those things did work, but I realized like as time progressed, I was more and more depressed. I was very suicidal. I was harming myself like consistently, and I just feel like a lot of those things, like, they weren't helping me. And I was so confused. I was like, well, people say that their lives are, you know, great, they're getting money from this, they're whatever it is, what they're manifesting, it's coming into fruition for them. But for me, those things were happening, but I was empty inside. And so I think it was just a progressive cycle of just like, you know, getting more deep into the witchcraft and educating myself more. I did have tarot cards, but I never really used them. I just was like too scared to like use them, because like I'd heard like people would like call their like ancestors and like like their spirit guides. I heard of that. I'm not too educated on that stuff, but I did want to get into those, and I think that tarot cards are very demonic. I just feel like you don't I feel like I didn't really know what I was doing, and I feel like I don't want this video to be misleading. I think it's hard for me to kind of like share how I really feel about this. It's hard for me to like put it into words, but I'm just gonna go ahead with that. So 8th grade, I was 14, and I was really into like tarot cards and stuff like that. So progressively, I was going into my freshman year of high school, and this is when COVID, like, you know, we wore masks, but we were still able to go to school. So it was kind of like school was in session. So I remember I was in my freshman year of high school, and this was one of the worst years of my life. I was very deeply into the witchcraft. I was very deeply into all those spirituality things. I dressed completely differently. I feel like I didn't really know who I was, and I feel like when you're 15 in high school, you don't know who you are. And so I just remembered like I was just severely depressed. I remember I couldn't even go to school. Like, I couldn't get out of bed. I was just so depressed, and I was like really deeply on social media, and it was really bad for me. And I think that's another reason like I want to make a video about this, but have completely cut out social media. The only app that I use is YouTube, and I can just see a big change in my life. Like, I feel like when you're constantly on social media, you're constantly worried about what people are doing into their lives, and you're really invested into other people's lives, and you're not invested into yourself. And I feel like for me, like, I needed to really put the work in. I needed to be invested into my life, but instead I was just severely depressed, constantly worried about what other people were doing, and I wasn't focused on myself, and I was just not pouring that energy into me. And I was neglecting myself on every single aspect, physically, mentally, emotionally. I was neglecting who I was. So at this point in my life, I just remembered like I had quit going to school. I remember sitting in the bathroom every day at school. I felt like I wasn't good enough to make friends. I was deeply insecure of my appearance. I remember like I could not take photos of myself. I could not record myself because I was just severely insecure. And I know that there's people that go through that same thing, and I feel like I always felt very alone. Like, I remember when I was depressed and like I was very insecure, like I felt like, why do I feel like this? No one else seems to be struggling like how I was at the time. And I think that's like a lot of people aren't really vocal about what they're going through, and so it's like that's why it's so important. Like, you'll never know what people are going through. And so for me, like, I just felt very alone in my, you know, journey. And so, yeah, I remember I was online and I just was not going outside. I was very just depressed. And at this point, I think I was an atheist. Like, I did not believe in God. And that was really, like, just upsetting for me because my whole life I did believe in God. But, like, there was really a time in my life where I just did not have faith. I was like, how could there be a God if I'm depressed like this? How could there be a God if I'm just struggling like this? And it's just really upsetting because a lot of the times when I do speak to people that don't have religious backgrounds, or they're just not faithful, or they're atheists, or they're confused, a lot of them, you know, say the same thing, you know, how can I believe in a God if I'm in pain? And I think it's such a valid reasoning, but I just feel like for me and how I overcame that, I really just told myself, like, okay, well, life is about struggling, and every day, you know, whether who you are or whatever, we all go through some type of struggle in our lives, whether that's getting cut on the wrist, whether it's physical pain, or whether it's mental and you're in an abusive, you know, household, or whatever it is, or you're, you know, homeless and you're struggling financially. Like, we all experience that, and I think that is really a part of life. And, you know, I know that God gives us, you know, tests, and those tests can be hard, but I think it really shows the amount of courage and the amount of ambition that a person has to just keep fighting and to keep going. And I think that's what gives me my faith now. Like, I still go through, you know, a lot of different things on a daily basis, and I feel like I'm constantly being tested, but I'm consistently trying to overcome those things every day. And I'm like, you know what, God's giving me a test, but he knows that I'm strong enough to get through that test. And so that's kind of how I look at my struggle now. It's not really like, oh, well, like, I just feel like there's nothing left for me because I'm going through something that's painful. And I don't want to downplay anyone's pain, but I just feel like a lot of the times we put our physical pain and we're like, how could we go through something like this? And if there is a God, why would he want me to struggle like this? Because I can completely understand that. But I just feel like, look at it as something that you can overcome someday. And when you do overcome that test and that struggle, you'll look back at yourself and you'll be like, I'm so strong. I grew so much. And you'll just become an even more beautiful person. Like, I look back at the depressed girl that I used to be when I was deeply into witchcraft, and I hated myself and I hated my life. And I look at myself now, and I'm a completely different person. And, you know, that's really with the glory of God. He really turned my life around, and he gave me a whole 360 shift. Like, I can't even believe that was me. And so that's why it's so beautiful. We as human beings are so beautiful because we're able to change and evolve. And I think that is just beautiful because no matter where you are in life, you can be whoever you want to be. Like, this life is limitless, and I think we have to really see that life is really full of abundance. Like, whether it's you want to make money, like, there's abundance of everything in this life. And I just feel like, what a waste to think that you're not deserving of that. Like, we all have so much potential. So back to the point. I think I was talking about how I did online school at this point. I was, you know, very just depressed, and I really just was giving up on myself. I didn't have any hope. I didn't have anything left. I think I was, you know, admitted into therapy because I was very suicidal and I would harm myself every day. And yeah, so I was going into therapy at this point, and I was on the verge of going like into a mental hospital, but I don't know. I didn't end up doing it, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because I feel like that would have been very traumatic for me. So at this point, I was just not in school. I barely went outside, and I don't know what that noise is, but I just remembered like feeling hopeless, like I said. And so I think I remember like the summer of going to my sophomore year, like I kind of started to find more hope, and I was starting to like try like newer things because I didn't want to live in this depression anymore. I remember I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I hated my life so much. I didn't do anything. Like, I would barely go outside. So during that point, going into my sophomore year, I transferred schools and I started going to in-person school again. And I think it was good for me, but it was very hard for me. But I do think that like God was really working with me this whole time, because even though I did lose faith with him, he planted little seeds of hope. And that's how I know like he's real, because I just look back on my whole testimony and my whole journey, and it's like I really was seeing that he was trying to get to me. So at this point I was in person school, and I remember this year, like my sophomore year, was very difficult for me. I had no friends. I never talked at school, and I was just going through the motions of life at this point. Like, it was always really difficult for me to make connections, and I just feel like I didn't really have love for myself, and I really hated myself. So I kind of just remember like going to school, but I think I was still depressed, but it just wasn't. I kind of like fell back from the witchcraft, like I wasn't really doing it as much anymore. But I was still like believing of that whole thing, but I just never really touched it. I feel like I just didn't really feel the need to anymore, but I was just still very depressed. I still remember like not having a purpose. I feel like I didn't have a purpose in my life, and I felt like there was nothing for me to live for. And that was a very consistent feeling. Like, even when I was severely depressed, like I just remembered like not having a purpose, and like when I was like doing okay with my life, like I still just didn't really, life just wasn't exciting, and it felt like I remember waking up in the morning and I just would hate to wake up. Like, I didn't want to live in a way. Like, I didn't want to continuously like just go through life, pretty much. So going into my junior year was really when things really changed for me. I remember in the beginning, like junior year was kind of hard still. Like, it was still hard for me to like make friends and make connections. I was still doing good in school, but I feel like now I started to have kind of motivation, because I was getting closer to graduation and I felt like I needed to do something in my life. But I was still very lost, but I just felt like there was a light at the end of the tunnel, because I was going to end up leaving my abusive household. So I remember the December of 2023, and it's almost been a year now, was the decision and the turning point in my life. I decided to give my life to Christ, which is one of the best decisions I could have ever made for myself. I remember like I was really thinking about it. I was like really thinking about like, why do I not believe in God? Like, I really started to think like, why did I stop my belief in him, and just like with the whole thing. And I remember my sister at the time, like she was really in church. She was really like doing good, and I remember I was like, she seems like she's doing really good in her life, and she's in the church consistently. I remember like she had a Bible, and she would like read it. Like, I would look through it and there would be like words highlighted everywhere, and I was like, wow, like this is really crazy. Like, I've never met anyone that was so big on just like God, and like really like seeking him, and like just seeking all of that. And I was like, wow, like, and I didn't really understand it at the time, and it kind of made me like want to like learn more, but I was still like iffy, and I was like, I don't know, like because I still didn't have belief for God. Like, I still didn't really believe. I didn't have any faith. And so I think what really made me change my whole my whole like point, or like my whole perception, was just like, I was like, you know what, like, even if God isn't real, even if this isn't real or whatever, why not try to be a good person? I remember telling myself that. I was like, you know, like the commandments, like they always teach us to like be a kind person. They always teach us to be a kind person, and to like just the commandments are there to basically teach you how to live a fulfilled life. And so I was like, if God isn't real, like why not just like try and be a better person? So I was like, you know what, like if I don't like it, and if I don't feel like anything is changing in my life, like I'm just not gonna do it. But why not give this a try? And so I think I'm really proud that I did like have an open mind to that, because I was like, why not have, you know, why not give something a try? And I feel like with social media, like I remember like people have like a stereotype of like Catholics and Christians. Like I feel like they think that they're very like judgmental people, which is true, but I just feel like my whole outlook on Christianity is really like your whole relationship with God. And so I'm big on like the relationship, and that's kind of like what I have with God is my personal relationship. So at this point, like I remember like I asked my mom for a Bible for Christmas. And I was so excited to get my Bible for Christmas. And I still have it to this day. I have a purple Bible that my mother got for me for Christmas, and that's like the only gift that I wanted. And if she wasn't gonna give me it, like I was gonna buy myself it, but like yeah, so I got a Bible for Christmas, and I read that Bible every day. I started highlighting everything in it. Um I really just like I remember like opening a new page every day and like looking through it, and my love for God was getting stronger every day. Like I really want to get back to that point because I had like a strong fire for God. And at that point, before I had like gave my life to Christ, I was still depressed. I was still very insecure of my appearance. I remember I was still like not really taking pictures of myself. Like I remember like when I was a freshman in high school, like I stopped taking pictures completely of myself because I was so self-conscious of my appearance. And it's really sad because it's like you're still deserving of a picture. Like I know that there's people like social media, like you're constantly seeing beautiful people every day and you compare yourself to them, but it's like you are still deserving of a picture. You're deserving of whatever. Like you're deserving of friends. You're deserving of whatever you want. And I feel like it's so hard sometimes because when you've constantly been let down and people have disrespected you, it's hard for you to really see the value in you. But we all have value, and you don't have to place that value on your appearance. It's really on the inside. Like I place all of my value on the inside. I really try not to become too fixated with my appearance because it's so unhealthy. Like it's so unhealthy, and I know that like in the end I will become very insecure. And so I have to really like place the value on the inside, and it really teaches me to like be a beautiful person to people and to myself. So yeah, during this point I was reading the Bible every day. I remember looking up testimony videos on YouTube, and I really always wanted to like post my testimony. Like it took me a really long time to like record this. I don't know if I'm gonna post this, but I hope that I do. But I always wanted to post my testimony because I feel like the testimonies that I would see, I feel like I wasn't too deep into the witchcraft, and I wasn't like I was very depressed, but like I wasn't depressed to the point where like I was on the verge of death. And so I felt like my testimony wasn't that like I guess like purposeful or in a way, but I feel like anyone's like my testimony or my experiences are valid. Like the experiences that I went through in my life got me to this point, and I'm honestly grateful for that because God was working with me even when I had no belief of him. He was always there, and God is always with you. It's really just you making that decision to come to him and to turn to him and to give your life to God, because God will accept us. Like we are all sinners, but I was just really going through it. Like it was very, even thinking back and looking back on that point in my life, it was so hard to just get up every day. And I know that there's people that, feel that same way today. And I'm really here to tell you that there is a way out. Like you don't have to feel that pain forever. And so after that point, like I started going to church every Sunday, like consistently. I was there. I was at church. I was reading my Bible every day. I was, so in love with God. I was really like making sacrifices. Like I was changing my ways. Like I was changing like my life, like for the better. Like I remember like I really like first thing in the morning, like I would read the Bible. When I would go to bed, I would read the Bible. Like I would just have so much love for people, and I would like pray every day. Like after every meal I always pray, like to really give gratitude and like show that I'm grateful for life. I'm grateful to really live every day because I see the beauty in life. Like I can see the beauty in people, and it's really because I'm allowing God to live through me. And I pray like, God, please allow the Holy Spirit to live through me. Like allow me to show love for, people that I come across every day. And I feel like I really try to not use God as like self-improvement. I feel like so many people like they turn to Christ because they want their lives to magically change but the work is through you. You have to put the work in. You have to make those sacrifices, because if you don't, like, you will not change. And growth is hard. This journey, like this walk with Christ, is hard, but it's worth it long term. Like, you will feel happy on the inside. Like, you will genuinely feel happy. You know, now I'm no longer depressed. I'm no longer suicidal. I burned all of my witchcraft. I burned all of it. I threw it all out. I have nothing of that. And I feel like I can genuinely say that I'm content. Like, I'm very happy. And I have so much love for people. And I feel like it's definitely a journey. And we're not perfect, and we have to believe that we are sinners and we're not perfect, but we can strive to be the best that we can, you know, every day, just striving to make a change, to make a difference for yourself, to inspire people. Like, I've inspired my friends to turn their lives to God. And it's really just, when you make that change, the people will see it, and you will start to allow God to come into your family's lives. So yeah, like, I don't know, I feel like I left a lot of parts out, but it was so long ago, like, when I was going through a lot of these things, so I kind of forget. But I just feel like it's really a continuous journey. Like, every day is just a new day to, like, be better, and a new opportunity. So now I want to talk about, like, my life now. My life is pretty good. I actually remember, like, that this whole summer I was, like, praying to God daily, like, God, please send new people in my life. And I literally made such a beautiful friend. Like, I never would have expected it to happen so soon. And, like, in school, like, it was so hard for me to, like, talk. And now, like, I feel like I can just really share my mind. Like, I remember, like, even just recording this video, I made the video in the summer, like, the fear of being seen. I really broke through that. Like, there was, oh my gosh, like, for so long in my life, I was so insecure. Like, so insecure. I could not record myself. I could not take pictures of myself because I hated myself. I hated the way that I looked. And I feel like now, like, I really have no insecurities. Like, I don't place any value on the physical. And I feel like that's what really helped me. I deleted social media. Like, I have goals now. Like, I want to, like, I'm graduating high school next year. Like, this year I'm graduating high school. I remember when I was failing all my classes in school. Like, it's really crazy the work that the Lord can do. And that's why I always say, like, I've gotten to this point because of my walk with Christ. He has given me the courage to get here. Like, the strength. He gives me the strength every day to keep going. And I really want to spread his light onto other people, because I know what he can do. And it's just really crazy to look back on, like, who I used to be and where I am now. And it's like, this is really just the beginning, and it's just crazy. Like, it's crazy, but, like, I just feel like, yeah, like, I've really done, like, a whole 360 with my life, and it's just crazy. But I do feel like it's so easy to, like, be tempted and to, like, start to do, like, I don't think people realize, like, how demonic, like, witchcraft can be. Like, I remember I would watch testimonies, and, like, every like, person that did witchcraft said that they were deeply depressed in their past, and they were going through spiritual warfare. So I just feel like I definitely don't want to touch on it too much, just because I'm not really educated on it. But I know, like, there's stuff that be going on. Like, there's spiritual stuff that be going on, and it's just really crazy, like, honestly. But I think that's it for the video today. It was a lot. Like, there was so much topics in this video, but I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that this video can really touch the souls that need it, and the souls that, I really hope this video can help someone, like, honestly. And I hope that I can be more consistent with posting. I haven't posted in, like, 2 months or 3, but I hope that I can be consistent. And I just really hope that you guys could get something out of this video. Like, this video is so, I want my page to just be so, like, genuine and authentic, because it really is. Like, this is really coming from my soul, literally. But I hope whoever sees this can have a beautiful day and a beautiful rest of their lives. And I hope that this video can bless you. And yeah, thank you for watching. Goodbye.